Wait, stop scrolling. You hear that? That's the sound of your breath being taken away by an amazing actress that we've got as our guest. Don't go
Hi, and welcome to the ArtsFam podcast.
The only show of its kind that spotlights the arts and entertainment scene in Southern Maryland.
We're your hosts, Lindsay Pomerink and James Lepore.
She's right about that.
And every week we bring you a brand new, super cool guest that's part of something locally that you can do right here in Southern Maryland this coming week. James.
What?
The guest we have this week
Is everything.
Yes, she is.
Let me just say that this guest is the only person that I can think of that made me cry at every single performance, and I was directing it. And
what?
I could not.
Whoa. What show?
This was at Solderly. It was either
Solderly.
Ghost
Okay.
Tour or Candlelight, which is the Christmas, and I was directing, and this guest just made me lose it every single night. So, anyway.
Okay, y'all. I just learned this for the first time. Viewers.
Mm-hmm.
We should call them something other than viewers, shouldn't we?
They're friends.
They're friends.
They're friends.
Friends. We just learned this together for the first time. This connection. And I love it. Okay, without further ado. Because we don't need to further ado it.
No, we don't.
We have the one, the only, the epic
Shemika Renee.
Yes.
Oh, it's much ado about nothing.
That.
You stop it, young lady.
And the reason we have Shemika here with us tonight is because Shemika has written and stars in an amazing show that you can see at Port Tobacco Theater, April 12th, 13th, and 14th. And you're going to find out in a little while you want to go all 3 nights. But it's called Ms. Story's Living History. It's incredible.
Okay.
It's incredible.
Okay. Guys, I have not seen this yet. And guys, I'll be there. And James will be there.
Yeah, we'll be there.
So say hello if you see us. But
I'll be there.
You better be there, otherwise we're going to be looking at an empty stage.
It's a one-woman show, so, if I'm not there.
Okay. So give us a quick little synopsis.
Have you met me?
Oh,
wait, just tonight.
Yes, just tonight, but we're all ready. We're all ready friends. Okay.
A super quick synopsis is Ms. Story is an eccentric bookkeeper. She has a bookstore.
Okay.
And she invites people in to learn about history. But they learn about history in unexpected ways. They will learn, it will either reaffirm to them things that they knew about these famous women, or it will dispel myths that they thought they knew about these famous women.
And these women are?
You have to come to the show to see.
Well, you don't have to name them all individually,
why
but
did you even
so
ask
then how
she was going to answer
that?
Okay, we'll just punch and roll.
So there are.
That was a joke. James.
What?
That was like banter.
Oh, I
wasn't punching and rolling you.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Just take it back to wherever you want.
Go with the vibe, man.
So I mean, if I told you that, then you might decide what day to come and what day not to come, and you already told them that they should come to all 3.
Yes.
The pants fell off.
This is not that kind of show.
Might be.
Well, that won't happen in my show.
This is
my show is very family friendly.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
okay.
It is.
So there will be no losing of the cup holders.
Okay, got it. What I was getting at is, what is the theme for all these famous women?
The theme is hope and inspiration in spite of whatever they may have gone through.
Are these all people that most people will have heard of?
Depends on how good your education system was that you grew up in.
Oh, good answer. Okay.
And that's just being honest, because there are some names of women that I portray that people have heard of, most certainly, especially being from Maryland.
Yeah.
But then there are also other figures that perhaps people don't know as much about or may not have ever heard of. I've been doing first-person historical performing for 20 years. And I was going back to the same school because it was the school that my children were going to. But as time would go on, the teachers for the other grades would ask me to come and present to their classes. And it got to the point, it was maybe 3 or 4 years in, and I was performing for a 4th grade class. And I was doing one of my characters that I normally do. Yeah. And there was a little girl sitting in the front, and she was mimicking me or trying to correct me or getting ahead of the story that I was telling. Oh. And so in the middle of my presentation, because I interact with my audiences, I said, "Shh, you're going to give it away." And she looked at me and she said, "But you've told me this story every year for the past 4 years." And then it hit me. And I looked around the room, and all the posters that were hanging on the wall for Black History Month, some of the women that I was doing were on that poster. So I said, okay, you know what? You're absolutely right. So the next year that I came, I brought a whole different arsenal, and I did a different character.
Oh my gosh.
And the little girl, because I'd gone up to the 5th grade at this point, she says, "I don't know this one." I said, "I know." I want to teach you something new.
Awesome.
Okay.
And she was all in, but I did tell her thank you. And I actually ran into her some years later when she was in middle school, and I told, after it was around the time that I was doing my first version of Miss Story's Living History in 2019. And I ran into her, I think it was in Walmart. Yeah. And she came up to me, she gave me a hug. She said, "Do you remember me?" I said, "Yes." I was like, "I don't appreciate that you're taller than me now, but I do remember you." And I told her thank you, because her enthusiasm as a little child showed me that I was just doing the bare minimum. I was telling them the stories of people they'd already heard about that were in the forefront of history.
And you were comfortable telling
and
these
I was
stories,
comfortable
right?
telling those. So it challenged me to learn about other people. It challenged me to bring more women to the forefront who are not often talked about, who are often forgotten. And in particular, there is a character in my show who represents the women who are not listed in history.
Oh.
That she represents the ancestors who did not do anything that was historically significant enough to be in the textbook or the history books or the encyclopedias. For those of you who don't know what an encyclopedia is, it's a group of books that people used to sell door to door that had all of the history listed inside of it. It's kind of where we got the word Wikipedia for.
Yes,
that's for our younger visitors.
That was good. That was very good.
Long before.
Yes, many, many moons ago.
That's right.
Back in the late 1900s.
Oh, yes, before the inception of the internet.
I mean, I'm older than the internet, so.
Do you know what I realized?
Me too.
I'm older than Google.
Yes, me too.
When
I remember my
died.
mother telling me about email when I was 15, and she was saying, "Yes, I can type on my computer and hit a button, and somebody at their computer at another desk can read what I wrote." And I was just like, that makes no sense to me.
My
no
mother
idea
used
what
to,
you were talking
my
about.
mother used to say to me, "Send me a message on the web," and that meant send me an email. But
I had no idea. And now if the email goes down, we're like, "Oh, time to go home. Can't do any work."
Can you imagine kids now trying to sound like mean to their parents, saying, "Well, you're older than Google."
Okay.
I mean, my children have my children have told their older brother, "Man, you were born in the late 1900s," and that hurt his feelings deeply.
Yes. I'm 92.
He was born in 99.
Oh.
And I'm a bicentennial baby, so as far as they're concerned, I'm ancient.
So how many different women across the 3 nights do you portray? And it's different set of women every night, right?
Yes and no. So each night starts and ends with the same 2 characters.
Mm-hmm.
But in the middle, there are 4 characters that change each night. So if you want to come all 3 nights, then you get to meet a total of 14 people.
Mm-hmm.
But if you only come one night, then you meet 6 people and Miss Story. She's her own separate character.
Yeah.
But she ties everything up with a neat bow. So it's not that you come on Friday night, but because you didn't come all 3 nights, you don't get the full gist of the story.
That would be frustrating.
Very.
Yeah.
So you understand the purpose of the story. You understand the journey that Miss Story takes you on. You just might meet somebody from 1910 versus meeting somebody from 1750.
Do you ever switch the characters during the performance? In other words, like maybe somebody you were going to portray on Saturday night, you just on the fly put in Friday night show, or is it always?
It's always
it's set.
Chapter 1 is chapter 1, chapter 2 is chapter 2, chapter 3 is chapter 3. If I were to make those changes, I would do that ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
When I first did the show in 2019, I did it for 3 nights, and it was the same show every single night.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing changed. But I wanted to encourage those of my friends who had seen the show in 2019 to want to come back. So that's why I added more characters and I created chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3, because there are costumes that are involved. There are light and sound cues that are involved. So if I were to just switch it on the fly, my crew would be very unhappy with me, and my costume wouldn't match. I can't portray an aviator wearing a hoop skirt. That's just not. And see, I gave you a hint as to who 2 of the characters
are. Oh, that's right.
Oh. Okay, so you talking about costuming?
Yes.
As a local theater nerd of the Southern Maryland area and theater reviewer, tell me about costuming and your journey with it and how it plays in now what you're doing with Ms. Story.
I've always loved costuming and clothing from other eras. I'm Creole. I'm originally from Louisiana. I tell people all the time, I love the antebellum fashion and the architecture. It just politically was not very good for my people.
Mm-hmm.
No kidding.
But I love the hoop skirts. I'm a big fairy tale fan, so just anything that's going to give me that princessy look, I like. So actually, some of the historical people that I portray have been inspired by what would they have worn in that era. I love the beautiful hats. I love the gloves and the purses and the hats and the stockings of the 1940s. I love the petticoats of the 50s. I love the hoop skirts of the early 17, 18, 1900s. So also as a costumer and creating the show, I actually designed the structure of the show based on the costumes.
Whoa.
I looked at what costumes I had, what costumes were full enough that I could layer other articles of clothing underneath. So I come on stage in one costume, I walk off stage, I might just remove a couple of pins, drop that costume, I'm wearing another costume underneath, and I come back out.
So like a quick change moment.
My longest quick change, I think, takes 25 seconds, and my shortest is 5 seconds.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so then
nothing drags.
No, the fluidity of it.
I perform as a character.
Yeah.
Well, figure. They're not characters. Miss Story is a character. These are real people. These are figures. Yeah. So I'll perform as somebody, walk off stage. You will hear a voiceover about kind of a conclusion, what happened to them at the end of their life. And then by the time that is over, I come back on stage as a whole nother character in another costume.
What a brilliant framing device.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
Wow.
So I hope with the monologues to pique people's curiosity, to make them want to look it up, to look up these people, to find out who they were, either through Wikipedia or encyclopedias. And I also don't want to leave them hanging, for lack of a better term. Right. So instead of them wondering, as I'm preparing to do the next character, well, what happened to this person? Right. I wonder what happened, or them, when you're watching a movie or a based on historical piece,
Yes.
and then you start scrolling and looking at things, you fall down the Wikipedia rabbit hole,
Oh, yeah.
and then you have to
no.
rewind because you missed half of the
Yes, you
movie
did.
because
Yes,
you were looking
yes,
up
you did.
what really happened.
Yes, you did.
Well, you can't do that with my show.
No, you can't because it's
I'll
live.
take your phones from you.
Oh.
And you can't rewind me. So.
Oh, I love that.
And you actually speak to the audience, correct?
Yes, I do speak to the audience.
It's
yes.
interactive.
It's very interactive. In fact, I want people to answer back.
Oh.
I'm very good with improv. So if they answer back, I want them to. I encourage them to. And if you don't answer back, I will keep asking the question until you answer back.
And you will answer in character,
Yes.
whatever character happens to be
goodness.
on the stage at the moment.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
So, for example, the first time I did the show in 2019, there was a point where I talk about growing tobacco. That's very big in Maryland's history. Yes. And so I asked the question. At the time in my mind when I asked it, it was rhetorical. I was not expecting a response at all. And I said, are any of you here to steal the tobacco? And there was a gentleman off in the back who answered out very loudly for everybody and me to hear, yes, we are. And I looked right at him. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't planned. You could hear audible gasps from the audience because you're not used to people talking back to whoever's on stage. And I looked at him and I said, we have special ways of taking care of people like that. Tobacco was a very valuable crop. And we have ways of handling these. And he said, yes, ma'am. And then I went back into the rest of my monologue, but I never broke character. And from that point on, it set the seed in my mind, make the show interactive. So I will ask questions, and they're usually yes or no questions, but based on the responses, then I can pull from that energy and pull from that interaction because history can be fun. Yeah. History is taught incorrectly. It's taught mathematically. It's all about the numbers. How many people were affected, how much land was affected, how much money. But people don't think about, we compartmentalize history. Yes. Today that we're filming this, ironically, is the anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. April 4th. He died at the age of 39. He didn't even get to be 40. But if I were to tell you that he was the same age as Anne Frank, it would blow your mind. Because Anne Frank died at the age of 14. And we only see pictures of her in black and white. And we only associate her with being part of the horrible Holocaust. Yeah. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was during the 60s as an adult and was killed at 39. But they were born the same year.
That is, that's
they
hard to...
They were also born in the same year time span as Betty White and the late Queen Elizabeth II. So had they gone to school together, they all would have been in elementary school around the same time.
Wow.
Did your brain?
But you only think of Anne Frank as being a 14-year-old girl. You only think of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as being a middle-aged, not even middle-aged man. He was a very young man. Yeah. And then you only think of Queen Elizabeth II and Betty White as
older ladies. Yeah.
But they were all born within the same time period.
That's amazing. And they'd all be about 100 now.
Wow.
Had they lived.
That is...
Harriet Tubman was alive at the same time as Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan.
What?
Whoa, that I didn't expect you to say that.
Because Ronald Reagan was born in 1911 and Harriet Tubman died in 1913. So Ronald Reagan was 2 years old when Harriet Tubman died.
Wow.
Because she was 93.
Okay.
Is she one of the characters that you portray?
Yes, she is.
Oh, I got it a reveal.
And I revealed it for a specific reason. Should you come on the night that Harriet Tubman appears, I'm not going to tell you what night that is.
No.
But if you were there that night, I would advise you to follow any instructions she gives you. That's the only hint I'm going to give.
Oh.
Okay. Gotcha. My mind's already racing ahead like what this could be. So
I told you this show is very interactive.
Okay. May I nerd out about theater for a second?
Yes, please.
Okay. Because, I was holding it back.
Oh, yeah.
I had to nerd out. I do it regularly on this podcast. So, the method element. Folks, when Ms. Shemika arrived to our studio here tonight, I referred to her as a writer. And she was quick to correct me nicely.
Mm-hmm. I am a storyteller.
Yes.
I am not a writer.
And that distinction piqued my interest, and I know it piqued yours. Yeah. And I thought,
how was that?
Yes. And so tell our lovely, wonderful friends here at the ArtsFam podcast, what is the process you go through? Because if you're not a writer, then there's no script.
Well, right? Yes and no. There is a script, but I don't know it. And I tried I tried to give it to my tech people for lighting and sound, but since I don't know the script, they can't follow the script to do the lights and sounds. So they just told me to tell the stories and they'd figure it out. And my team is awesome. And they did, and they figured it out. And
that's probably better than any,
yes.
on
so they
paper
have
scripting that could be.
So I try to end each monologue with the same types of words so that they know, but it really helps having the voiceovers because the voiceovers are static.
Yeah.
So they know that part. And they know, oh, she's turned around and left and walked up the stage, turn off the lights. It's more technical than that. But when I find a person that I'm going to research, I will read about them.
Okay.
Usually through encyclopedias or Wikipedia.
We love a good callback.
Yes,
here.
But I will find out the basic overarching shell of their story.
Yeah.
What are they famous for? What time period were they alive? Then I will find an age that I want to capture them. Yeah. Or a time period in their life. I research what the fashion was of that era, of that specific time period. I think about how old they are in that time period. If they were younger, their fashion would be modern, whatever that modern time period is. If they're older, they would have worn something maybe a decade or so before because, as older ladies, we like to wear what we like to wear. And then from there, I find what happened with them. I find that element of hope. I find out what I want to convey about that person. Oftentimes, I will happen upon something that I have in common with them so that I'm able to connect with them on a different level, really put on their shoes and really know what it feels like to be them. And then I have all the information in my head. And then just like you and I are, the three of us are talking and I'm telling the story, I try to make it as conversational. I try to make it real. If I write everything out and memorize it, it becomes rote. It becomes a memorized script. Yeah. And if I'm trying to bring these people to life and pull the essence of who they were as a person, then I have to be as authentic as I can. And I think about, if I were to tell you a story about when I was in elementary school, I'm not going to say, well, back in 1984, when I was in elementary school in Seoul, Korea, I'm just going to say when I was in the 4th grade, I got pushed off the monkey bars and cracked my head open. I didn't, but that's just the first thing that popped into my head. Yeah. So that's what I try to do. So I'm not a writer. And when I try to write, it takes me a very long time to write things. And then when I give them to people and they expect me to know what it is I've written, I have a meltdown, which really did happen. So my team just said, just tell us the stories. We'll figure it out. And they did. And I'm very grateful to them understanding and seeing me for the artist that I am. And though my art is different from other people's and it manifests itself differently than other people would, I'm starting to learn that is who I am. Yes. And to embrace it and not apologize for the way that I present my art, because my art is a gift. Yes, and I can't begrudge that gift, and I can't change. If I try to change it and do it differently, then it's not me being authentic to the gift that was given to me.
Yes.
Do you ever envision anybody else doing this show with your words? Or is this exclusively yours?
I don't know. I'm very protective of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I also recognize that different people will do it differently. Now, Ms. Story is my original character. So I think I would struggle with somebody trying to tell the story the way I do, and they won't be able to do it the way that I do.
Right.
Yeah.
But, and my show is copyrighted. It's in the Library of Congress.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody wants to do my show,
yes,
you have to pay me royalties.
Yes.
But I'm not opposed to somebody wanting to do living history.
Okay.
And I also have a dream, a hope in the future that future chapters will be Ms. Story and Friends. I have a couple of ideas where there's a historical figure that I portray that is in the show.
Okay.
And right now, I am only on stage talking to this person. But I have the idea and the hope that one day I will have a scene partner who can respond back, and it can be a conversation between the historical figure that I portray and another historical figure. So it's that's
I'll do it.
Well, I mean, I don't know how comfortable you would be in a hoop skirt, so I don't think that's gonna quite work. But
I have very nice legs.
Not in a hoop skirt. Nobody's gonna see them.
Oh, damn it!
But there are other historical figures that you and I could collaborate on.
Do you ever step for the within the context of the show? Do you ever step out and become Shemika, telling the audience about the next person maybe that's going to come out or anything like that, or is it always it's either a character or Ms. Story?
As Shemika, no.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, what does that look?
You have to come to the show and see.
Well, it will be there.
Yes,
We wouldn't miss
okay.
this.
I know that.
And y'all, get your butts over to the Port Tobacco Theater.
Yep.
And you know what?
It's only 3 nights, so you can't
Only
snooze
3.
on this.
And
either,
one of the nights is actually a matinee at 3:00. So.
Oh, you speaking
Is that
my
the
language?
Sunday?
Yes.
Okay.
I love that. You know, I love a matinee. I'm only 31, but I feel I'm starting to get into my era of matinees. You know, I can
go see a show and then you still have the rest of your day.
I know,
You
that's
sound
right.
like a Southern belle when you said that.
Hey, we've talked about this. Yes, we've talked about
That's
this.
some sexy stuff, isn't it?
I mean, you know. I grew up in Virginia Beach, but Virginia Beach.
I mean, I'm from
the South.
I'm from Louisiana, so I consider all y'all Yankees. I'm sorry. And I probably
Hey,
just lost half
hey.
the audience.
Hey, no. Let's look at history.
Yeah. I know
Well,
Mason Dixon line.
yes.
But if I can't get sweet tea in a restaurant besides 2 specific chains, then it's not really the South. Sorry. If I go to a regular mom and pop restaurant and ask for sweet tea, and they say we have raspberry tea, that's
no.
I don't understand how hard it is
That's
to just make
wrong.
another pot with sugar, and I don't.
Oh no!
I don't understand.
And not just a little sprinkle.
I never heard of sweet tea until I moved down
No,
to Maryland.
that thing better be so sweet I could stick a fork in it
And it stands up.
Yes.
Wow.
That is sweet tea.
Shemika, who was the first woman that you said, I'm going to research this for possible performance reasons?
That is a very complicated question, and it's really...
Well, I'm a complicated guy.
And it's really, really funny to me that you specified first woman. Because if you had asked me the first historical person that I did on this journey, it wouldn't have been a woman.
Oh,
but I'll get
that's
to
a
that.
surprise. Okay.
But
Yes,
I'll
it
get to
is.
that. Actually, and I thought about this recently in the last couple of years, but this has been a part of me since I was a child.
Oh.
When I was in the 3rd grade, I had to do a book report. A book report is when teachers tell you to read a book and then stand up in front of your class and tell them about the book that you read. I've asked my children, they don't do that anymore.
Wait,
so
what? They They don't book reports anymore?
I don't think they have to stand up in front of class and talk about him. And that was a real big in the late 1900s and 1980s, long time ago. Yes,
I was a 90s baby. We did it.
Well, they must have stopped in the mid 2000s because my children had no idea what I was talking about. But I read Little House on the Prairie because I used to love the TV show.
Yes.
And
Laura Ingalls Wilder.
Yes, and then the teacher said that we had to do an oral report in front of the class.
Okay.
And so I raised my hand, and she said, "Yes, Shemika." And I said, "Can we dress up if we want to as the characters?"
Oh, the birth of the actress,
yes,
right here.
Yes. And she said, "If you want to." So I immediately went home. You know, after the bell rang, of course, I didn't skip school. But I immediately went home, and my mom was a seamstress, and I asked her if she would make me a costume, and she did. I remember it to this day, and I loved it.
On one day's notice. You made me a costume for tomorrow, Mom.
It wasn't for I wasn't like that. It was
okay.
We were given the assignment, and then we had weeks.
Oh, okay.
I knew better. I wasn't one of those. Gotcha. Mom, I have a science fair project tomorrow, and it's 9 o'clock, and we had to go to Walmart.
Were you the only student that came dressed?
I don't remember. Oh, okay. I don't remember.
Let's just assume that she was.
I probably choose that version of the story because
me too.
That I am imagining little Shemika. I am.
With the long dress and the apron. It was great.
Yes, and all the other kids
looking like, what are you wearing?
Yep.
And you, I feel this.
Mm-hmm.
You were like, what are they not wearing?
Right. Like, you didn't understand the assignment.
Yeah.
So I got an A, as one does.
Of course.
The next year, we had to do something for Black History Month, and I didn't know who I want to portray. And my mom, and this one, everybody did have to dress up, I think. Mm-hmm. And my mother told me about Shirley Chisholm, and that she had run for president. And I was like, what? A Black woman ran for president?
Well, what?
Now, mind you, this was in 1983.
What?
And so, you don't know about Shirley Chisholm?
No.
I think that goes back to like
1972. 1972.
I'm not
she was the
Look at this.
Yes.
How am I put history, right? 1972, right?
So I didn't. So when I was learning about her, I thought it was like so long ago. But now doing research, I'm like, that was only 10 years basically before my mom told me about it. She was saying she wore these really loud shirts and blouses and all these different patterns and prints. So she helped me come up with the costume.
Mm-hmm.
Shirley Chisholm might show up in the show. Just saying.
Oh,
that's another hint. So I've been like this since I was a child. Yeah. When I was in the 8th grade, I did Phyllis Wheatley, the first woman of African descent to be a published poet in America, and it's always been a part of me. So, but when my oldest was in kindergarten, I wanted to be involved with his schooling, but I didn't want to be that mom that watched the class while the teacher made photocopies or took care of personal business, but I wanted to be involved. So his teacher asked me, well, what would you like to do? And I believe it was divinely inspired.
Yeah.
I just said, I can dress up as any historical figure and tell their story in first person.
Wow.
And she said, oh, that's fabulous. I think that's a great idea. I'll call you. And I said, okay. And I thought she was being kind. Like, let's get coffee. And sure. And then it never happens. Right.
Yes.
So a couple of weeks later, she called me and asked me if I was still interested. And I said, sure, of course.
Yeah.
Who do you want me to play? I'm thinking Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, Johnny Appleseed.
I didn't see that coming.
Out of left field. Did you do it?
So after I put a pot on my head and went to the school in an oversized shirt and oversized pants and walked in barefoot with a pot on my head. Now these were kindergartners, so I was very clear to them. I said John Chapman, which was the real name of Johnny Appleseed, was a white man, and I clearly am not.
If they didn't, but they weren't able to infer
But they may not have known that who Johnny Appleseed was or what he looked like. So I was just being upfront. Yeah. He's a white man. I'm not.
Right.
And there was one little child that said, but you're wearing a pot on your head and we don't care.
Okay.
We love you.
That is the purity of children.
The fact that I went all in and I literally had a pot on my head and I said, well, let's go.
I love it. I love it.
And a career was born. And then she did the next month she wanted me to come back And I said, I'm not going to do any more gentle people. I will do people that look more like me. So I did Queen Isabella. Then for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I did Coretta Scott King.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had to remind the children, because they were in kindergarten, that I was pretending to be her, because I didn't want the students telling my children they were sorry about the passing of their dad.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
No.
I went, and I used to tell the stories differently. I used to do cradle to grave. So I would say, I was born in this year, and then I would go all the way to, and I would actually stay in character and then say, and I died this year. So one year I did the presentation for a school, and I always open it up for questions afterwards for the students. And this little girl raised her hand. I think she was kindergarten or first grade. And she says, "Are you an angel?" And I said, "No." She said, "A ghost?" And I said, "No." And she said, "But you said you died." And it made me realize,
kids are so literal,
right? How because one little child went home and told his mother, and she was a friend of mine, went home and said, named my child and said, "Their mommy is a slave," because I portrayed Harriet Tubman for them. Right. And so the mom knew me and knew what I did. And so she said, "No, honey." And he said, "But she said that she was." And she said, "No, she was an actress. She was acting." So then I would make sure that when I had the question and answer with the students, all of those experiences taught me, pull out a specific time period. Don't go cradle to grave, except for now that I do the voiceovers. It gives the what happened. And I try not to even with some of the harder stories, because the show is for all ages. So it's appropriate for 5-year-olds up to 105. I don't want to exclude anybody. I mean, you can bring little bitties. They're not going to bother me either. But I try to think about how they're going to feel and what they're thinking and what they will understand and not understand. And even though the stories are hard, I try to do an uplifting message. So even when the voiceover talks about the person dying, I'll say they lived to be this age.
I love that.
Instead of, because that's a I feel it's a more uplifting way of saying, instead of she died at the age of 93.
People walk out feeling good about the accomplishments.
She lived to be the age of 93. Sounds a lot different than she died at the age of 93.
That's true.
Yeah, it's very different.
I was originally going to ask you which came first, your love of theater or love of historical women, but hearing that story, it sounds like they all came at the same time.
It was a love of costuming, honestly, because sometimes I would literally look up women that looked like me, that wore the types of clothes that I wanted to be able to wear. Like Dido. She was the daughter of a Black woman and a naval officer from England. And she was raised her father accepted her. So she wore beautiful clothing. And I don't portray her, but I wanted to find women in our history that could have worn some of those things. Yeah. And not all of them do. Yeah. But it was honestly the love of some of the clothing of past eras that pulled me in. And then as I started doing more research and learning about the history of people and these images that I had in my mind growing up, like Harriet Tubman, I always thought she was this large, imposing force of a woman, 6 foot tall with broad shoulders. I just thought she was this behemoth of a woman, and she was 5'3", the same height I am. Wow! I got excited when I read that. I was like, "Ooh, I can play her."
Yeah,
I'm her height.
So then your abilities with not only costuming but makeup and hair too came all about the same time.
Yes, I've had some people say that it's really weird to them to see how I melt into the characters and transform, and I can look like one person in one instance, and then it completely changes.
Well, not only that, I've seen you make other actors and actresses become somebody else through your makeup and hair artistry.
Yeah.
All an illusion.
Okay, well, let's circle back to that because it made me think about it. Because the theater nerd in me,
Mm-hmm.
the method, because you're a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
Ha. Okay, I think method acting is the coolest thing on earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I mean, I'm not going to eat creatures like Nicolas Cage, but
Yeah.
I try to embody the essence and the thoughts of who
Without
the
the
person
crazy.
is.
And if you'd like to see us doing a complete podcast debating whether or not the method acting is the greatest thing ever, just write to Lindsay at theartsfam.com and say, we want to see it. Because I'm not method.
You know, so I don't know if I ever said this on the podcast. I did theater in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was on that journey of acting at the time and dabbled with directing, I remember trying to explore, did I want to go method acting? Or did I want to do the outside in, all of it? So maybe that's why I've been so fascinated when you meet actors to see how different all of their process.
I don't know that mine is method. It's what I do is more when I'm researching the people, I'll realize or I'll see or look for what do I have in common with them?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What can I draw on? Yeah. There are a couple of characters that I portray that talk about experiences that they've had, and I have actually done those things. So I know what it feels like to do this particular thing. One is a seamstress. I know what it's like to prick my finger with a needle.
Yeah.
So I can act that because I know what that
That's
feels
like the very definition of method acting.
Is,
right.
Yeah.
So it's not that I research these people and then say, oh, I have to go out and do this to understand what it feels like. I realize that I have a connection with that person because they have done this. Like there's somebody who tends to tobacco. I have actually tended to tobacco. The first time, yes, the first time that I received the script at a former place of employment and worked to do a tour, the first time I read the script and was presenting the script, I was interpreting it a specific way. I was talking about the different creatures that are on the tobacco and how I presented it then versus the following year after I had actually seen the creatures in real life and actually had the experience of dealing with them. My whole performance changed because before it was just in theory.
Yes.
Like if you've never seen
a zebra,
right, or you've never seen an earthworm, but you've heard of it, you can kind of imagine what it looks like or feels like, but then if you've ever had an earthworm fall on you, or you've ever ridden a camel, which I have, you know what it feels like to feel like you're going to fall face forward because the camel lifts their hind legs first and then they stand up fully.
Who would have known?
But if you've never ridden a camel, you can't describe what that feels like. But after you have, you can describe it in accurate detail. So some of the audience members may realize or may feel that feels really authentic how she's talking about this particular experience. It's because I've actually lived through those experiences.
That's so cool.
Is that,
oh my gosh.
Does that why you have chosen these certain things in your performance, because they reflect something that you personally identify with or have done?
Not initially. I don't specifically look for historical figures that have done what I've done in my life. I will be drawn to them for whatever other reason. Either I heard their name or I heard something interesting that they did. And in the middle of the research or in the process of the research, I'll realize, oh, wait, I've done that. There's one historical figure. I started researching her. Part of the reason why I'm not a writer is because there are a few instances where the monologue is taken from actual interviews done by the person.
Oh,
So a
that's so
lot of the
cool.
words that I say were actually from these interviews.
Wow.
And in one of the historical figures' lives, she talks about an experience she had in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that prior to reading and researching this. And when I saw that, my brain just like, you know,
Yeah.
brain blast, because the area she was talking about, I've been there. I know the river that she's talking about.
Yeah.
My dad used to work across that river. So I've got that personal connection being from Louisiana. So having that connection, like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
There's a historical figure in there that I knew of her. I knew what she was famous for. I had no idea she was from Louisiana. There's at least 2 or 3 that were from Louisiana that I had grown up my whole life hearing about or knowing about or learning about them at school, but had no idea they had a connection to Louisiana. I had no idea Harriet Tubman was 5'3".
Yeah.
So just having those moments, some of them it's as simple as the historical figure is a mother.
Yeah.
And I'm a mother.
Yeah.
And I know how I feel about my children, and I know how I can imagine how I would feel if I went through whatever this historical figure went through as a mother. And so I pull from that. Now sometimes it's like a slight undercurrent of emotion because I can't let myself get too far in, otherwise I may not be able to pull out to go to the next figure.
Yeah.
But I want it to be as real and authentic as possible, because a lot of them have not had their stories told correctly.
Correct.
Or at all.
Yeah.
And they deserve to have their stories told. They deserve to have all of their names said. And I've been asked, why do I portray enslaved people? And not every character is enslaved or was enslaved. It goes through it goes through history. But I portray women who were enslaved because I know for a fact that I have great, great, great grandmothers who were enslaved. I've seen my family tree where it says, in parentheses, slave. And I tell their stories because at the end of the day, I have the privilege of taking the costume off and going home.
Whereas they did
yes.
not. Yeah.
So I heard this beautiful sentiment that, and I think this goes for everyone, because I think we're starting to every people group in all of it has had different. I'm half Irish. So, but Irish people, we have not been treated very well.
I was actually in a situation where I was at work at a previous place of employment, and I was portraying a woman that was enslaved. And there was a gentleman who approached me who was of Irish descent. And he said to me that he knew how I felt because of what had been done to his family. And because I don't know all history, and I'm not as well versed in the trauma that people of Irish descent have faced or that is embedded in their DNA. But I know that there is something there. And I couldn't tell if he was trying to connect with me or if he was trying to get a rise out of me to see what I would say, because there are many people who may not equate the trauma that people of Irish descent have gone through the same way they would equate the trauma that African Americans have. But neither one of us know each other's struggle. And it's not the oppression Olympics. So what I said to him was, I don't know what all your people have gone through, but I am certain that it has affected you and your family. And I'm sorry that what was done to your people was done to your people. And isn't it wonderful that we can be their legacy and move in a different direction to show honor and respect to our ancestors, because we have better opportunities than they do.
So yeah, I heard that. You are your ancestors rise in the night, their prayers when they didn't have enough, whatever it was. And you, right, in what is in human history a very privileged time to exist with technology things. And I don't know that quote like resonate. What it is that you do.
Thank And that's why I try to convey messages of hope in the stories, because like I was saying, I've got the privilege of taking the costume off.
Yeah.
I have the privilege of I've washed clothing like they did in the 1700s. It's not fun. I came home and I kissed my washing machine. I was very grateful for it. Literally, I hugged it. I said, "I'm so grateful for you.
I shall
Appreciate
never
you."
take you for granted
Right.
ever again.
Right. But we are their legacy.
Yeah.
There are, and I tell people that the descendants of those who were enslaved, we are here because our ancestors survived. There were hundreds of people who didn't survive the Middle Passage.
Yeah.
There are lines that are completely severed between the various countries in Africa and America because they didn't survive. So that line didn't continue in America. But the lines that did continue in America, from the countries in Africa, from the Caribbean, from wherever else people that were enslaved were brought over from, they were resilient. They may have had happy moments, but they weren't happy.
Yeah.
And the fact that they continued on, even through having families separated, losing parents, losing children, and they still live. And we have the opportunity to honor their memory and their legacy. And that's what I'm grateful for, the opportunity to be able to do that.
Well, I think I speak for both of us. We are grateful that there is an artist like you right here in Southern Maryland. Southern Maryland's very own.
Transplanted.
Well, people should.
You know, you are here now with us.
Yes.
That Southern Maryland gets to have an artist like you.
Yeah.
You know?
And by the way, we should also say that this isn't just a one-time thing at Port Tobacco. You perform this show elsewhere several times during the year, a few times.
Well, I did the first one in 2019, and that basically came from my adult friends complaining that they never get to see what I do. They would see me post on Facebook about, I went to this school, I portrayed this person.
Yeah.
During Black History Month, I would always post pictures of the historical person and then me dressed as that person side by side, but they never got to see what I did.
Yeah.
And so I said, fine, one day I'll do it as a play maybe or something. And one of my friends held me to it, and so that's how it came to be. I did the performance at the Indian Head Black Box Theater in 2019. Then COVID hit, so that kind of destroyed that trajectory. But earlier this year, in February and March, I did it at Greenbelt Art Center, and I will be doing the show at Port Tobacco Players, and I'm starting to get some traction, and there are a few other places that are starting to show interest. So who knows? It may be at a theater near you.
Just so you know, we have been wanting to have this conversation with you for a very long time.
Yeah,
but we had to wait till such time that you were performing it in the areas that we target.
Southern Maryland.
So exactly.
Yep. So okay, We could talk forever because this has been.
Well, wait. If you viewers want to leave for a minute and go to the bathroom and then come back for more of this, feel free.
This has been.
No hit pause.
This has been an amazing interview.
I'm not done. I still got 18 more questions. No, it's been
only
incredible.
18.
No, actually, one thing before I forget.
Yes.
Now you've done this several times, different places. Do you ever add or subtract characters for any particular reason?
So as I said, I did add. The first time I did the show, I performed as Phyllis Wheatley, a woman that was not in history. Bessie Coleman, I'm mixing up the order right now. Harriet Tubman made an appearance. Elizabeth Keckley, Kathy Williams, and Mahalia Jackson.
Okay.
And I did that all 3 nights. And I wanted to encourage people to come back. So I will say that with one exception, the people that I just named, 2 exceptions, are in the show.
Yeah.
2 of them are represented that kind of merged.
Mm-hmm.
But I added new characters in, new figures in, to draw people back in, but also to expand it, because history, it's called Ms. Stories Living History.
Yeah. Because
I can do world history, I can do American history, I can do folklore, I can do anything. And I'm inspired by books. I often tell people, even when I was working in the museum career field, I would tell people that the history of our nation, the history of this area of the DMV itself, is like a giant history book. And this site has a chapter, and this site has a chapter, and this site has a chapter. And all those chapters combined create the book that we have. And so that is how I take the approach of Miss Stories Living History. Anytime I do the show from here on out, whether I add historical figures or change them, or however long or short I make it, adding in new people and her friends, it will just be another chapter. So when I do it in 2025, if I add or take away anybody in any particular show, that becomes chapter 4.
Cool.
And then chapter 5. And then
wow.
So April 12th, 13th, 14th, ptplayers.com.
Get your tickets.
Get your tickets. We said one weekend. Don't snooze on this.
Yeah.
Don't be eclipsed.
Aha, very good.
I have a sneaking suspicion that you're going to sell out.
I would love to sell out.
Y'all,
I would love.
Go buy your tickets before it sells out, because something tells me after that first night, the people that saw that show are going to tell everybody.
Yep.
And then you're not going to be able to get your tickets if you didn't think ahead.
And if you can't get there, it's okay.
That.
Lindsay's going to rent a big van. It will come pick you up, take you to PTP to see the shit.
I would love that.
All right, I might have made that part up.
Aw, rats.
Okay, well, all good things must come to an end, Ms. Shemika.
Yes.
So thank you. Truly from the bottom of Jane's and I's hearts.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a delight. It's been insightful. It's been inspiring.
We've been friends for a long time, and I have, during that entire 12 years or whatever, I've always been in awe of your talent. I'll just say really quick, because I started saying this before. Shemika's the only actor that I know personally that made me cry every single performance. And that was a scene on Sauterley Plantation about a slave family.
Yeah.
I directed it. And yet I still could not keep myself together watching the portrayal. That's just so, it was so real.
Yeah.
I couldn't separate reality from fiction. It was absolutely amazing. And I mean, I don't know if I was a fan before that, but I certainly was a fan after that. And you and I have done lots of stuff together. But you are an amazingly talented lady. Thank you so much for coming here and sharing all this information with everybody.
And you beautiful human beings, if going to see Miss Story isn't enough for you guys to do this week in Southern Maryland, stay right there. Because coming up next, we're going to give you even more bonus events.
We got some stuff to tell you about.
Stay right there. Come back. Oh my
They wouldn't go anywhere.
Oh God, no.
I'm sure they're like riveted.
Yes.
At our amazing
after that interview.
Yes, I mean, yeah, that's a guest. What is a guest?
Oh, she, dare I say, and maybe I say this a lot about every single guest I have. She's the best guest yet. The best one yet.
Well, she was pretty darn good.
Oh, she was, but guys, we're not going to spoil what next week's guest is. But
no, but you will hear about it in passing.
Yes,
okay?
And it's for you all to guess which one.
That's right.
Will be for our next episode.
And what will James be asked to do to make up for the fact that Lindsay got to learn roller derby? What could it be? I have no idea. Anyway, we've got some great stuff coming up this week. Don't forget to get your tickets for Shemika's show, of course. What do you got, Linz?
Okay, so first, beginning on April 12th, and this is going to run through the 28th, we have Ken Ludwig's Sherwood, The Adventures of Robin Hood at the Newtown Players.
Oh, that's something different.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
And I vaguely recall we had Carlton on.
Yes, we did.
He mentioned that he was going to be directing that show. So
you know it's going to be quality right there.
How cool. So guys, go get your tickets.
We may have to stop by there, I think, just to see what's going on.
You know what? Possibility.
You know what else is a good thing to go see? April 12th to the 21st, The Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson musical. This is directed by my friend Christy Wilhite, who I believe you're going to be meeting in weeks to come because we've got another event going on. This is at Great Mills High School in Great Mills, obviously. The half-blood son of a Greek god, mythological monsters, mystery, adapted from the book The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. Just go to Great Mills High School website, get your tickets, go to the show. You won't be sorry. Christy does quality.
And do you know, I remember when that show ran on Broadway.
Really?
Yes, and I didn't get a chance to see it.
Well, now's your chance.
Right! Now is your chance. Go watch those kids.
Boy, we're giving them a lot to digest.
Yes,
this week.
We are.
So keep digesting. There's more coming.
Next, on Saturday, April 13th at 3 p.m., there's live boxing in Calvert County presented.
Wait, boxing? Boxing like boxing?
Boxing.
Wow.
Yeah. Presented by the Knowledge Boxing Center, and that takes place at the Truth Bible Church in Prince Frederick.
Were you just so disappointed by the fact that roller derby did not entail punching ladies in the face that now you're going to want to jump in the ring and cover this?
No, but it would be a cool thing to watch.
It certainly would. Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, boxing's become a Southern Maryland thing. It's at the Rex. It's at this place. Wow. Okay. I got a double header.
What do you
here
got?
At Twin
what do you got?
Beach Players, which is in North Beach.
Yes.
Okay. April 5th to the 20th, the comedy The Big 5-0. It's a comedy about turning 50.
Oh.
Directed by Reagan Nelson. Really funny lady.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hilarious, sometimes touching account of a grown man coming to terms with his age, his wife, his son, his future. So that's going to be a great show.
Yes.
But since you're going up to Twin Beach anyway, April 13th and 14th, you can attend auditions for She Kills Monsters by Key Noyan. Performance is going to be June 14th to the 29th. It's directed by Brian Bowman and Rosie Giselnik. I hope I said that name right.
Yeah.
But is your opportunity to audition. We say all the time, community theater. Go try. If you don't get a role, you can do something else.
Yeah,
That's all.
absolutely. And she kills monsters. I've seen the show one time when a community a community theater did it during the pandemic, and they did it virtually, where everybody was vaccinated, all wearing their masks.
Right.
And it's such a great show.
Oh, I know nothing about it, so I'm gonna have to go.
So guys, get out there, audition for it, and hey, maybe James and I will get to see you perform.
That's right. You may be sitting in that seat right over there with us interviewing you. Let's not put the cart before the horse, but
all right. So next on the docket, on Saturday, April 13th, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., there's the 4th annual First Landing Wine and Arts Festival. Yes,
wine and art.
Two of my most favorite things.
Yep.
Together, I'm there at St. Clements Island Museum. And it's going to have 3 Maryland wineries with food trucks, live music, locally crafted items and arts, kids activities, and it all takes place on the beautiful shores of the Potomac River. And the event is free.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I mean, you have to pay for the food trucks and everything, but the entertainment part of it is free. Right. There's always something going on down there, too.
Oh, my goodness, there is.
Amazing. Last one I've got is for the classical music aficionados.
Oh.
Sunday, April 14th at 3 p.m. It's a classical concert featuring Chopin and Gershwin by pianist Thomas Pandolfi. And it's going to be at Lexington Park United Methodist Church. It's free, but they accept donations. So
we love that.
Yeah, classical music.
Oh my gosh.
Go see it. Sunday, April 14th, 3 p.m.
Okay, and then finally this week, on Tuesday, April 16th from 12 to 1 p.m. That's something a little different here.
Tuesday. Wow.
I know, Tuesday. Yeah, that's cool. Becky Titus. Don't know.
The singer.
Oh.
I've heard of her. She's great.
Well, okay. She's going to be performing indie rock covers and original music. And you know how I feel about original music right here in Southern Maryland. Everything.
She may end up being a potential guest someday.
It could be. I don't know. And that is in the Leonardtown Square in Leonardtown. And
place I know well.
It's free.
That's even
My
better.
favorite price tag.
And while we're on the subject, if you, our viewers, know of something exciting coming up and you say, boy, I wish the ArtsFam podcast did talk about that, send an email. Lindsay at theartsfam.com. Let us know what's going on that you want to see, and if we can, we'll cover it.
And, James, you know what else is absolutely free to do?
Dancing in the rain.
I mean, yes, and that's fun. But if you like this podcast and you want to support us in an absolutely free way, an awesome way you can do that is by liking, commenting, sharing this video anywhere you see it.
You know what? Don't be shy about sending it to your friends out of the area because they may just be entertained by cool guests and our spunky banter.
Shemika.
Like Shemika, right.
Yes.
So, hey, let's let this propagate elsewhere.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode.
No! I never want the episodes to end. I keep on talking.
As always, thank you so much, you beautiful human beings, for joining us on the Art Fam Podcast! We'll see you next week.
Bye.